in where you're from, where you grew up, how it all began. Where are you from?
Yes, I was born in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe, and after I completed high school, I crossed the river.
With what? Sorry, we just want to know.
Yeah, so I then came to Wits to study for an engineering degree. I was fortunate, I was sponsored by DBS, and they gave me the opportunity to do an undergrad and a postgrad, and they gave me my first job.
Wow, amazing. And as you know, as I was reading your profile, I'm fascinated by how well educated you are, and you still putting a lot of effort into educating yourself and getting a lot of accolades as well. What drives you? Like what keeps you getting that degree and getting more educated? Especially like as Black people, we are not. Sorry if I've offended anyone, but we're always told that a black man doesn't need. Black people don't have enough degrees or accolades. What drives you to being more educated and to educating yourself?
Yeah, so I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather couldn't even write his name, but he valued education.
Yeah.
And my mother, who is now late, plays a lot of emphasis on education. And she sacrificed a lot for me to be able to get to high school. And I think for my family, there was no one that had a degree.
Yes.
And one of the things that she said was, if you work hard and study, you can be anything. And I recall a headmaster in grade 5. There's a headmaster, Mr. Mnyama, then, and he used to talk a lot about you can go anyway. And one of the prophecies that he said to me at the time was, and I remember reading the testimony that he had written when I was going to high school, was that this young man has got a capability to go all the way.
Yes.
And so I'm glad that at least some people believed in me. And I think it's people believing in me that actually makes me work harder and not to disappoint them.
Yes. And then you work with a lot of startups, and in our ecosystem, we always hear people saying, saying bad things about education. They don't want to go to school, they don't want to go to university because they want to focus more on growing their businesses. How important is being formally educated? How does that help one as a startup or as an entrepreneur? Because you hear a lot of people saying, no, I don't need university because I'm an entrepreneur. I don't need to go to school. I don't need formal education. What are some of the important elements that we are overlooking as entrepreneurs or as startups?
So, one of the things is that I think an education gives you grounding. It gives you something to fall back on. And some studies that have been done show that people that build sustainable businesses are people that have some foundation education, but also people that have worked somewhere in a job.
Yes.
Because what a job teaches you is discipline.
Yes.
And in the absence of discipline, it becomes very difficult to actually succeed. And so it's actually quite important for any entrepreneur to be able to educate themselves. You don't have to have a PhD, but if you've got aspirations to eventually follow an academic career, it does help. But any form of training, whether it's a postgraduate degree or a diploma, is actually worthwhile. And it's important to actually study the field that you're actually building a business in.
Amazing. And now I want to talk about you joining the Incubation Hub. And it's said that this is actually your last one. After how many years now?
7 years.
7 years with the Innovation Hub, and I've known you from obviously from social media and obviously from seeing you speaking at other entrepreneurial events. And I've always been fascinated by the love that you have. And I'm saying love because it looked genuine, it looks genuine. You are building, or you were building, a community of entrepreneurs, and you always support entrepreneurs. When you joined, for somebody who doesn't know what the Innovation Hub is and why it exists, Would you briefly get into it?
Yeah, so the Innovation Hub was established by the provincial government in about 2002, and its current location in 2005. And so I joined it in 2011, in February 2011, and the brief that I was given was, it's a great facility, but it is not focused on innovation.
Okay.
And it needs somebody to come in and turn it around and place more emphasis on innovation as opposed to real estate. So it's built on a 60-hectare site between the University of Pretoria and the CSIR. And so my first day on the job, but interestingly, before joining, I was actually located within the Innovation Hub.
Okay.
So I used to be with the Technology Innovation Agency.
Okay.
So I was in one building, so on a Friday I knocked off one building, and on a Monday I reported in the other building. And there were about 22 people then, and I sat down with all of them, and we took stock in terms of what was going right, what was going wrong. The occupancy levels were at about 65%.
Okay.
And occupancy is important for that particular facility. It accounts for about 20 to 30% of the budget or revenue. So we sat down to actually figure out why are people leaving the Innovation Hub. And this was quite a difficult one because remember my mandate was to focus on innovation and not real estate. And so we then sat down and figured out that we were not focused on the customer and we didn't have the right skills to be able to do what we were meant to do. And even then, when we looked at the team, there was not even one person in a team of 22 people with an engineering or technical or ICT qualification.
Okay.
So we then set about to basically build that particular capability.
Yes.
And today, we've got a great team. There's a few of them here in the room. We're subject matter experts. We have, we've been at full occupancy for the last 5 years without dropping. We have grown the programs, we've introduced competitions.
Yes.
We now have specialized incubators in each of the priority sectors where we operate. And we also have taken innovation outside of the Pretoria precinct. So we operate now in 10 townships in Gauteng. We are in Braamfontein and Sumulokong precinct with a specialized incubator, and we're doing, I think, amazing things.
Yes.
Today we incubate over 450 startups in Gauteng.
And also on that, what kind of support do incubators give to startups and entrepreneurs?
So it varies. So if in general, they provide space. It could be co-working space like what you have here.
Yes.
It could be subsidized offices for those companies that have grown and are starting to make some money. To be mentorship, technical and business mentorship. To be access to market through a variety of means, whether it be networking events similar to what we have here this evening, or through very structured interactions with industry and government. To be access to finance. Very often the incubators don't have the funds themselves, so they work with agencies and VCs to be able to provide finance. It's really a sense of community that they provide, and then to be other infrastructure such as connectivity, and in some cases obviously some social infrastructure.
Amazing. And from your interaction with a lot of entrepreneurs that you engage with, what are some of the common challenges that entrepreneurs face, and how are these incubators actually helping these entrepreneurs to help their businesses and to so that they can scale, and so that next year they're no longer on the same level that you found them like a year prior to that?
So I think what is perhaps important is to understand the whole concept of incubation.
Okay.
And it's born out of, in essence, biology, because a premature baby, once born, they cannot look after themselves. They cannot breathe on their own, and so they put them in an incubator in a hospital so that they are supported, almost on life support, up until their own organs can be able to breathe for themselves, to function. And so it's a similar thing with entrepreneurs and incubators. So incubators are there to be able to provide almost a lifeline to entrepreneurs. And what is that lifeline? So, one thing that entrepreneurs complain about is access to funding. So incubators are there to be able to support them, to connect them to sources of funding. But also, when you're starting off a business, you don't have the money to be able to hire an office.
Yes.
So incubators provide that core working space,
Yes.
Accessible, cheap, and so forth, and you're able to grow. You also want to have a professional image, and so you get the address. So it's actually quite cool to have an address of
Yes.
1 Mark Shuttleworth Street.
Yeah.
Right? And then you want somebody to be able to answer your phone when you're actually out there, building a business and selling. And so if you're in an incubator similar to the Innovation Hub, and I'm sure others, there's a landline that somebody can be able to phone, and you receive calls. There's also photocopy machines. You don't want to be worrying and going to to an internet cafe to be able to photocopy and do all sorts of things. And so in essence, it's all those things that are vital to building the business,
Yes.
and also market intelligence.
Yes.
And so when we talk about market access, quite often it happens in an event like this. People network, and then suddenly somebody says, I'm doing this, and somebody says, I'm doing that. Let me connect you to this particular person. And I've seen actually businesses coming out of those particular network events. And I think what Trevor was doing is actually very important in terms of people need to listen, and you need to actually understand who you're actually talking to, because it's a network behind that particular person that contributes to how you're actually going to grow the business. And at times we don't take enough time to be able to understand the people that are sitting around the table and the power of the network.
Small conversations, yeah. And then in general, let's say I know nothing about how I can be incubated. Do we go through a vetting process, or you just rock up there, hey, I'm a new entrepreneur, this is the space, I'm going to use it? Or is there a process that one follows in order to be selected as a part of, as one of you guys?
Yeah, so and I think we need to also distinguish between co-working spaces and incubators, because co-working spaces, in essence, you can be able to come in and you follow the rules, you pay whatever amount for a desk, and boom, you're working from there. Incubators generally have a criteria to accept the entrepreneurs. If I use the Innovation Hub as a yardstick, so if you take the green economy, the Climate Innovation Center, the criteria will be that you must be either in energy, in water, or waste management. And so that's the first thing that they'll look at. And then the next thing would be, is the idea innovative? Is it competitive? Is there a need in the market for this particular idea? Who would actually buy? Is there competition? And what is the competition looking like? And they would look at the entrepreneur and say, can this guy actually build a business? Because it's beyond, it's not necessarily the idea, it's actually the entrepreneur that incubators actually bet on, and that investors bet on. And so that becomes quite an important thing to say, can this person really stick it out?
How do you determine that though? Because you can't just look at somebody and say, I think you can crack it, I think not.
Well, I mean, you can. So when somebody comes to us with an idea, you actually ask them, so what have you done with the idea? So how many doors have they knocked before they came to our door?
Okay.
Have they, spent some of their own pocket money? Have they sold something of one of their belongings in order to put back into this particular business? So you're actually looking for a sacrifice, you're looking for that hunger out of this particular person that you're actually talking to.
Yes.
If one of my colleagues talks about a forklift syndrome,
Yes.
which is somebody that just says, give me. So if somebody comes with the forklift syndrome, then we know that this is not the entrepreneur. This is not an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Because see, an entrepreneur is a guy that sees the opportunity and is prepared to put in the hard work to realize the benefits. because they can see the opportunity.
Amazing. Wow. Okay, before we go on, I want to talk more about the company culture that you've seen also with some of the startups that you've been working with. But I want to know if you guys have any questions for McLean before we proceed. Hi.
Hi, my name is Tao from toyswithhoods.co.za. I wanted to ask, from working with entrepreneurs, it's sort of a compound question, what are the common mistakes that you see?
Sorry, so please repeat that.
Oh, okay. So I wanted to find out, from working with entrepreneurs, what are the common mistakes that you see them make, and what do you think they should know from the onset?
So I think what they should know from the onset is that it's going to take longer than what they think it's going to take. So, and that's the reality. So, you know, if it's funding, generally whatever number they put behind, you know, before you, you probably need to multiply it by pi, 22/7. That is more of a realistic number. But I think the mistakes that they make, you know, quite often is people do not quite spend enough time understanding the problem that they're solving. So you've got to be, if you're solving a big enough problem, you're not really struggling with the issue of market access. So you need to actually really study, you know, the problem, also understand the competition. And the other mistake is people say there's no competition. There's always competition. Because somebody is using a product, you're going to displace something that somebody is already buying. And you need to be able to figure out, why should they actually buy my own product? And so that particular, you know, time that you need to spend understanding the problem is almost similar to if you're selling dog food or you're making dog food. The big question is, who is your customer? Is it the dog or is it the dog master? So, but the dog is going to eat it, but the dog is not going to buy it. So you got to then figure out, how is the dog master going to know that this is the right kind of, you know, food? So you need to actually spend enough time around, you know, the problem, and also build a team. And that's the other mistake that we see. You know, people at times don't want to bring on board equity partners because they want everything. And the big question is, would you rather have 100% of nothing, or, you know, 20% of a billion rand business?
Yeah.
So I mean, I would choose the latter. Yeah.
So with just to end on that, with choosing a team in the early stages, what does one look for, especially in the stage where money is still a factor in your company? Obviously, you can't literally hire everyone that you dreamt of hiring in the beginning stage of the company. So in the very beginning, what must one look for when they're putting together a team?
So, I mean, quite often the ideas person is not the CEO type of a person. So if you're the idea person, you need to actually figure out whether you are the person that is going to be really the CEO and is going to be out there talking to investors, or whether your role is actually, you know, more on developing the idea. So if you find that you're the ideas person but not the CEO type, you need to actually figure out how you can bring somebody in as an equity, you know, partner. And so people that you bring in at the beginning must be invested themselves. Okay. You shouldn't be paying people at the beginning because there's no money.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to be paid, they're not an entrepreneurial type, you know, they're job type, you know, leave them. Try to find somebody that can actually...
You'll get to them later, when the company is established.
And you need, you know, to have, you know, people that understand money as well, because cash flow is key.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you can't bring those people in, find a mentor or somebody that you can abuse, you know, now and then. You know, legal matters are quite key. Yes. So if you know, find a good lawyer. And I think it's important also not to try to look for too much free free things. You
Yeah.
are building a business.
Yeah.
So invest, pay for whatever you need to pay for,
Yes.
and demand value from
Yeah.
it.
Also, I've had a lot of entrepreneurs saying they are collaborating, with exchanging their services. If I've got accounting services and you've got legal services, we can do a trade exchange, and perhaps that could also help as well.
Yeah.
We have another question from this. Do we have a question online?
Yeah. Tabam Kizi is asking, from a digital marketing agency point of view, what are the funding opportunities that are there?
Well, I think there's a lot of funding going around. SIFA there's another fund, SME fund that's launching, I think, on the 10th of July. They are launching that particular fund, for SMEs. Digital for funding. I think digital kind of agencies is not an easy one. And so, my advice is, the traditional one, family, friends, and fools. From there, once you've gained some appetite, hopefully you can find some corporate that's looking for somebody in terms of enterprise development points. They can bring you onto their value chain, and also with digital, marketing agency, maybe start to identify startups that are on a growth path and offer the services on the understanding that when they can afford to pay, they will be able to pay you.
Amazing. Gugu?
Hi, my name is Gugu, also known as Letu. I want to ask you, I had a very interesting conversation with Tabo earlier, but from your side, how would you advise a social entrepreneur to best fund their company and make it sustainable? Because now I see a lot of projects that we've run previously. You find that you find funding from a company for 1 year, but not for the following year.
Yeah.
So there's no sustainability in the social entrepreneur side of things. How would you best advise someone moving forward to create that sustainability? You spoke of solving a problem. Now, when we are solving the problem and the problem is the humans, how do you then move forward from that?
Just before you answer that as well.
No. And when I say humans, I hear people saying make them pay at the bank. I'm speaking people maybe who cannot afford those services that you are trying to help them with, like empowering the people that are not empowered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Gugu, do you still need a lift?
Yes.
Oh, okay, you can say that. She said she needs help with somebody who's going to Kempton Park. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Are you fine?
No, it's okay that you announced it.
Oh, okay. So if there's anyone that's going to Kempton Park, you can ride with her. She said you guys will talk. Okay.
So social entrepreneurship, it's not an easy space. So let me perhaps respond with an example. So a few years ago, we didn't fund her at the beginning. We identified her in one of the SAB Foundation Awards, and she came second or third. Tuli Memeza, Tuli Tetra, and she spun out a company, Memeza. And Memeza was really addressing, the problem of crime in the townships in particular. She was a victim of crime herself, and she'd come up with the product where you pull a string and then it makes a huge noise, and then apparently the thieves run away. And the police did actually say, the thieves are actually afraid of the noise rather than being caught.
Okay.
So she came into the Innovation Hub, we worked with them. Today she has a product. So she still has that, which she developed further and gives it out to kids. There were a few things that were impractical. It got funded through Center for Public Service Innovation and other kind of grants. And today she has a product which is a community alarm system where you press a button and you send out an SMS to like 10 people that have been pre-programmed alerting them that Letru is in trouble, and one of those people is the police in the area. And in working with one of the things was really hard to actually get this business to be sustainable. And so in some cases, you've got to find people that are going to pay so that you can then be able to subsidize those that can't pay.
Yeah.
And in her case, that's really what she has been able to do. So, that particular alarm system that was developed is rolled out in Diepsloot. She's rolling it out in private schools, that can afford, to pay. And she continues obviously looking for the grants, and so forth. And it's the same model, that pharmaceutical companies actually also use, where if they're addressing a need in a developing country or least developed country, they might sell the products they're cheaper, but then in the developed world, they're going to charge, premium. But if you find that you can't do that, and all you're actually doing is going and begging in order to help other people, we need prayers for you.
Then it's not
And
much
that's really the thing, because you don't have a business. You're going to need to spend a lot of time figuring out what is a business. So one of the things that I think is very important is to do a business model canvas. So 1 page, and that's your business plan. So I don't believe in 20 100-page business plans, and I don't. So whip out in a page and do a business model canvas. Understand what's your value proposition, who are your customers, and which parts of the value proposition talk to your customers, what are your customer segments, how are you going to get that value proposition out to those customers, figure out how you're going to make money, what are your costs, and are you making more money than actually you're spending, and go backwards and look at in-house in terms of the engine room. What are you doing as a business on a day-to-day basis, and who are your partners, and boom, you've got the entire business plan on 1 page.
Are you answered?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
But sorry, can I have a follow-up?
Sure.
Besides the lady, the lady who did Memeza, does the Innovation Hub traditionally, are there more social entrepreneurs that are being, because I see most companies would rather uplift a company that will make profit. But has the Innovation Hub or other companies in the room know of companies that have actually incubated social entrepreneurs? Because like you said, it's a difficult space, and I feel those are the people that should be more incubated, so to speak. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, for us, it's actually difficult. And so the questions that we ask ourselves is, what is the problem that we're solving as an agency of the Gauteng government? We're sitting with high unemployment, so we need to actually create jobs. So we look for startups and entrepreneurs that have got the potential to be able to create jobs. We're sitting with inequality, so we're looking for startups that can be able to bridge that. We're sitting, with poverty, and we're sitting with also declining manufacturing. So actually looking for companies that can provide competitiveness, for the problems. So in terms of us, social, entrepreneurship, we love them, and we support them, give them space and what have you, wherever we can. But we're looking for sustainability, because if you are still struggling after a while and you're not actually sustainable, we're spending a lot of time trying to keep you to be sustainable. And so the way that we incubate is that we cannot be in an incubator forever. So in our case, you are in what we call a factory for 12 months.
Okay.
And at the end of 12 months, you better be, have sold something.
Yes.
Tested the market, somebody's interested in the product, and therefore you move into our core program. And in core, we're focusing on profitability. And we want to get to be profitable, and profitability not just 1 month, but consistently for 6 months. And then we kick you out into the bigger world.
Amazing. Wow. Okay, hi.
Hi.
Hi, it's Mpumi Mutabi, toyswithroots.co.za. My question is with regards to the success rate. So you incubate these people, they come out into the big bad world. What percentage of them actually then succeed?
Good question.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, success is, for us, the first measure of success is profitability for 6 months. So, you know, so if we take a cohort we had a cohort of about, let's say, 50 in factory, we know that at the end of 12 months, we would have a good 10 to 15 that will go into core. So this past year, out of a core cohort of about 50, we managed to, I think we graduated 12, right? 12. So 12 profitable, sustainable companies are out there. All of them are still trading 6 months, and we're hoping that they'll continue, to trade. But yes, the chances of failure continue to be there because there's competition. That comes, your product will become irrelevant. The other thing is that you got one product type of companies. So they're working on one product, and then somebody comes with a better product, boom, you're out of business. And so it's important to actually be asking yourself, how can you stay ahead of the competition? One thing is, if your product is really good, competition is going to want to duplicate it.
Yes. Yeah.
So how are you going to stop that? So in some cases, yes, intellectual property, patent it. If you can, it provides you with a better competitiveness. But you can never guarantee that of the 12 that we graduated, all of them are going to be still successful in 5 years' time. I think of the 12 that we graduated, I suspect that half of them would not be there in 5 years' time. In fact, we've seen some of the companies that we graduated change their whole business model later on. I can tell you of a guy, Neo Tiri. Neo came to us, and his first startup failed. And he basically rebuilt that particular startup. He took sabbatical for about a year or two, and he came back. He's now got a startup that's actually looking very, very promising. You can look at somebody. There's one guy that has been building this business as long as I've been in the ecosystem, since about 2004, doing bone morphogenic proteins. He sells his product to Discovery. He's at a scaling phase, and is he going to succeed? I think he's going to succeed. Why? Because he's an entrepreneur. He's really driving it hard. There's a need for the product. Is a patent good? Not really. It's a patent that has got one claim that is valid. All the other claims are found to be invalid, but the product is good. And he has managed to develop a strategy to communicate with the doctors that prescribe that particular product. And so he's built a whole market. There's people that actually understand his product, and he keeps on adding other complementary products as he gets feedback back from the market. So it's actually important as an entrepreneur to also listen to the market. So going back to the other question, entrepreneurs generally don't listen. They think they know it all. And so at times it's actually quite important to actually listen. It doesn't mean that you got to then follow blindly.
Yes, yeah.
But you must listen and spend enough time understanding what is this advice that I've been given. Does it make sense? Take yourself out of the startup and look at it externally, and don't get too consumed, with the startup.
So I appreciate that it's really incumbent on the entrepreneur themselves to make it work. So the 12 out of 50 that actually do make it work, maybe now 6 actually that will eventually succeed, but that's a very low rate. So what needs to be done to ensure that that number is even higher, especially if those people have gone through an incubation period? The people here probably don't even go through incubation.
Yeah.
So in this room, 2 people maybe actually then eventually make it. How do we ensure that that doesn't happen? Or that that number actually is better?
So generally, the rate is low.
Take the microphone away from me. One more. No, you can't do that because there's still a lot of other people who have asked questions.
So that I mean, the rate of success is low, because I think if building a business was easy, all of us would be building businesses.
Yeah.
So it's the ones that succeed are the ones that are actually addressing a problem that the market feels it needs to be addressed. The ones that fail, chances are they're addressing it, but they're not addressing it the way that the market, would want it. So I mean, if I'm a consumer and I'm using something and you bring me another product, the big question is, what is the pain that I've got to go through to be able to switch? And if the pain is high, I'm not going to switch.
Yeah.
You might have an incredible product, but if the pain is high, I'm not going to switch. And so, going back to your point, and this is perhaps one of the challenges that I see in the system, is that all of us want to own an incubator. There are so many incubators springing out almost in every corner.
Yeah.
And so it's like living in a country where there's a lot of sick people, right? And so as a government, what do we say? We say, let's build more hospitals.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
And we build these hospitals, and the people come to the hospitals, but they're not doctors, they're not nurses. And so and this is a big challenge that we're facing as a country, that and I can put my head on the block and say, most of the incubators that we're actually seeing today do not have the right skills to incubate. We face it as well as the Innovation Hub. When we recruit, we battle to find the people, and we take a lot of time to train the people, but that is a big thing. So if we can be able to, as a country, spend enough time training people to support entrepreneurs, at the same time focusing on building a culture of entrepreneurship, a culture of innovation. And so on the one hand, you've got people generating the ideas, and on the other hand, you're going to have people supporting these people that are generating the ideas. Then I think we've got a better chance. But the way that we're doing it right now, we're not going to succeed. You look at the Department of Small Business Ministry, they've been given a lot of money. But where are the people that are going to be supporting the entrepreneurs? What is their background? Have they ever sold anything? And so one of the things I think I realized when I got to the Innovation Hub quite early on is, as I was going out and talking to people, they'll question my own credentials and say, "What do you know? What have you done?
What have you built?
What have you built?" And so then once you relate and tell people, we built a boutique, startup that provides legal services, and this is it. I've done this and that. I've sold soap. I did Amway. I was out there. So I know about rejection. And so small things like that. So I've got a lot of respect for people that do multi-level marketing, because it teaches you to sell. And so as long as we can start to get people that are supporting startups to really beef up their own capabilities, and also I think humble themselves. We don't know everything. I spent the last 14 years funding, supporting innovation and entrepreneurs. I don't know everything.
I think the culture of entrepreneurship in South Africa is not as proactive as other countries or other places like your Silicon Valley and all of that. But we're trying. How can we enforce it to a point where it looks not only does it look very attractive, but it looks very sustainable for also up and coming entrepreneurs as well? I mean, you hear a lot of universities and even high schools now, they're trying to get their learners into this whole entrepreneurial ecosystem. But how do we force that, especially from a very young age?
So I mean, your last point is really, the answer. We've got to actually take a long-term view as a country and start with primary education. We've got to start to instill a culture where we're teaching young people at that age how to sell. We're teaching them how to solve problems.
Yes.
So we're teaching them, how to run a business from an early age. When they go to high school, we then inculcate more of those skills. We're teaching them how to code. At primary schools and secondary schools, when they get to university, and as they do their masters and PhDs, the outcome should be, how can I take this idea through to market? Because that's how, if you look at Silicon Valley, Silicon Valley did not become Silicon Valley overnight.
Yeah.
And there's a whole community, there's VCs, there's this and that, but there's an abundance of knowledge and ideas that are coming out. There's a culture that also accepts risk, accepts failure.
Absolutely,
in a way. We don't have that. So we have to also look at what are the problems that are facing us as South Africans and as Africans, and how do we solve them? And so let's start here at home whilst we can, and for the long term, then let's try to build a pipeline. So a conversation in terms of what's happening now with the higher education institutions, they'll be setting up a fund to support ideas coming out of universities.
Interesting.
But in a way, it's too late. What we should be doing is setting up a fund to support ideas that are coming out of primary school and also out of high school. And we should be having vacation work programs where young people, school children, actually go and actually learn how to code or learn how to build a business and learn how to sell, and those things.
Yes. Do we have another question?
We have a question back here, right?
Please keep your questions very brief. Your name and your question?
Good evening. My name is Charan Monson. I'm now in Director. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Sibanda. Through the discussions and the questions that you've been asked was basically revolving about the incubation of small businesses and startups, etc. You mentioned that the core program then goes on for another year. What then thereafter? Is there any ongoing training, coaching, mentoring that teaches the business owner on a growth path into growing the business?
Yeah, so within the Innovation Hub, what we've created is a whole range of other interventions. So we've got something called Innovate, and Innovate is one of our community networking events. And we're creating an alumni program for the guys that actually graduate out of the core. They are out in the business, and it's then coming back, giving a few hours of their time to other startups, because when you teach, you also learn and grow. But also we have a lot of delegations that come in from abroad, looking for opportunities. And when we get those delegations, we bring in the guys that have graduated and some startups that are still in the program. So 2 weeks ago, we did something in Brazil, South Africa Summit, again creating opportunities for the people in the ecosystem. Every year we do something with Portugal. So they bring in some startups in different sectors, and then we publicize those to our alumni and some of the companies in the Innovation Hub. So the idea is really to ensure that there is an ecosystem, and those that have benefited somehow, plow back.
Great. Yeah. Just whoever has a mic can ask the question.
My name is Sydney. I've got an 8-hour job and I teach to code at Soweto Hex in Shawela. And I just want to, something that I've picked up from the students that I interact with at the Shawela lab. There is a lack of reading. So what are you reading now, and are the fellow entrepreneurs reading? Because what I've picked up the pattern of all the successful people, or even those that are not successful, they've got the same pattern they read. What are you reading now?
Yeah, so the book that I'm reading is 12 Rules of Life, and it's a great book, but 12 Rules of Life. Yeah, it's a difficult book to read, but quite an incredible book. And yeah, so you've got to figure out. I mean, I read quite broadly, and so anything that appeals to me. I read psychology at times. I read also like Malcolm Gladwell. So you've got to actually read broadly, because I think when you read, the thing about reading is that it puts you almost in the shoes of somebody else.
Yes.
So I'm a visual person, so when I'm reading, I'm like moving around almost with wherever the setting is, and I remember things that visually. So I think with the kids that you're actually teaching, I mean, one of the things that I'd encourage is somehow build a small library, get people to donate some books, and get the kids to actually read 15 minutes a day. And once they can do 15 minutes a day, then we increase it to 30 minutes a day, and before you know it, they're able to read more.
The habit.
I think the challenge today is this thing here. So my son, who's turning 21, he tells me the same story. So I say, but you're not reading? He says, no, I'm reading. It's here. So I'm still old school. I battle to read here, so I like to flip the pages.
Yeah. Yes, Emily.
Sorry.
Okay, so yeah. Okay, cool.
So my question is, in the world today, innovation is very often in the automation space. It's replacing more jobs faster than jobs are being created. Are you addressing this at all in the Innovation Hub, or do you know any sort of things addressing that issue?
So one of the things that we did, so we created an incubator called MLab in 2012, Mobile Applications Development Laboratory with DST and Finnish government, World Bank. 3 years down the line, we realized that we're not getting black entrepreneurs and black startups. And we then went in and really dug deep and realized that people didn't really have the skill to develop businesses in that area. So we set up something called Core Tribe, which is a software development academy. And today that academy has trained over 250 young people. This year we've got about 120, 80 of them are in the townships. All of them are black, because that's a gap that we wanted to address.
Yes.
It's not that we turn away a white candidate that comes through, but we are very focused on doing that. Because if you look at, when you talk about the 4th industrial revolution, I mean, digital is quite key. People have to know how to code. Is this integration of the different physical, digital, biological, what have you. And so where we actually addressing the challenge is teaching people how to code. And there are jobs that do not exist today that will exist in 5-10 years' time.
Yes.
In the same way that businesses like Uber didn't exist then, but they actually exist today, and they're threatening the taxi industry. And so the only thing that we can do is to equip young people for the future, and not be too prescriptive. So even our own education system needs to actually change. We need to be actually thinking and saying, what are the skills? So we now need to talk about skills as opposed to jobs. And once you've got a bucket of skills, in the future you can be able to do anything. So maker skills, how do you actually make robots? Robots are going to become quite big. So there's a market, I think there's a market for us in South Africa to be able to also maybe make our own robots or make our own different digital things. We talk about the Internet of Things. These things are going to be talking to each other. What does it mean? But also we need to actually identify what jobs are threatened and how do we then upskill people to be able to do a different type of work. So we've started. I don't think that I can sit here and say that we are perfect at it. So there's a program that we are finalizing. The Premier announced it in his State of the Nation address, State of the Province address, where we are taking young people to Silicon Valley. So the first cohort is going to be 20. We've identified the area of cryptocurrencies, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and within that also you need to be looking at ethics of these things. It's not just how do you do artificial intelligence, but what are the ethics part of it. So the human sciences aspects become quite important.
Amazing. Yes.
Good evening, my name is Darcy. My question is, have you guys ever dealt with cooperatives? It would appear to be that addressing cooperatives, you can get more people involved. Has that happened in the hub?
Yeah, so at the Innovation Hub, we haven't. I mean, Tabile, I'm not aware of any cooperative that we support. Yeah. So we have, however, there's an agency that we work with, this African Council of Graduates Cooperatives. It's run by a gentleman called Tamsana Makubela. So they work with cooperatives, and he's quite passionate about cooperatives. But it's an area that we haven't delved into. I think there were some experiences, particularly with GEP, dealing with cooperatives, and we decided that we are not going to advocate them much because we do not understand them. So we stick to what we understand. Yeah.
Can we take 2 more questions and then we're wrapping up because we're running out of time. Emily has been raising her hand up. You can just speak louder because the microphone is far. Hello. Okay. Yeah, sure.
You can see. Yes, I just have a very major concern considering that you haven't touched upon one of the biggest sectors in South Africa, which is the mining industry. And if you look at the industry, we are struggling with the transformation industry. And if you look at black entrepreneurs, like the black entrepreneurs which are non-existent in the mining industry, which has been predominantly white-owned. So basically my biggest question is, what are you guys doing in order to ensure that the entrepreneurs in the mining industry can actually survive given the current circumstances of the industry and how it has been structured for over centuries? And I'm not talking about the freedom of. Yes, I am merely talking about transformation and building entrepreneurs in the mining industry that have the necessary skill, because we tend to have a challenge of, we have black competent entrepreneurs in the mining industry, but without the incubation and the support, they tend to drown because it's a white-owned industry.
Yeah, so I think the short answer is we are not in mining. So as the Innovation Hub, we focus on smart industries, which is ICT and advanced manufacturing. And then the second sector is bioeconomy, with a specific focus on health and agro-processing. And then the third sector is green economy, on water, energy, and waste. So I mean, and we've had this debate with our board as well. Our board says, no, you must do something in mining. My personal view is, if we're going to do anything in mining, it must be downstream, value addition. Yet at the same time, there are opportunities within primary, actual mining, because you are now having self-driven cars, underground. There's whole thing around how can you then put in diagnostic tools underground. If you're looking at the accidents that have happened in the mines recently, how can you be able to do any detection? So for me, those are the opportunities. I will not be going into the traditional way of mining. But I mean, that's me, and I'm not talking as a government official, because today I'm more from being a government official. But I think, for me, I think this is the key thing, is that we must not get stuck in the past. We must look in terms of the opportunities. So if you talk about mining, platinum group metals, there is fuel cells, and perhaps more emphasis needs to go there. And so we are then looking at that from an energy point of view. And so support entrepreneurs working in the fuel cells and looking at how they do value addition there. There will be also one of our agencies, sister agencies, the IDs, that supports entrepreneurs in jewelry, manufacturing, because they're taking the platinum and gold and what have you, and turning them into high value products. But the issue of transformation is, I think, is for all of us, and it requires all of us to be decisive. In the same way that I illustrated the example of the core tribe, where we are unapologetic about the fact that we are targeting black kids, because we need to transform. Yet at the same time, in the conversation that we had yesterday with somebody from Cape Town, so they're building something on health. We have established a health cluster here in Gauteng, and we're saying to them, we need to actually figure out how we bring on board entrepreneurs from Cape Town and entrepreneurs from our townships here. And so some of them in Cape Town, they are untransformed. Yet if they can be able to identify capabilities and competencies among some of the entrepreneurs and startups here, they can come together and they'll be more competitive. They'll be able to get to the market. So I think transformation needs to be tackled at different levels. If I was running the IDC or TIA, for example, I would find ways of enforcing or encouraging, rather, transformation at that level. So I've not answered you on the mining because we're not in that sector. I know Wits University are trying to, they're trying to do something. Courteous Law, there's an initiative to support mining entrepreneurs that I think Mintech and CSR are working on.
Great. Emily, it's your turn now.
Hello.
It's on, yeah. Okay,
Yeah. Hello, my name is Emily Mokano. I own Marshall and Morgan Interior Designs. Well, I don't have a question. I just want to say that the National Youth Development is not helping entrepreneurs in terms of funding their business. They will say, go there, apply for funding. You wait for 10 years or so. And my problem is that when I was in university, I went there and then I applied and I told them my idea, but till today I haven't had a response. And I think the government should just focus more on telling entrepreneurs to take a leap of faith into investing into their own companies than promising them things that they will not provide. Because there's a lot. I took a little, I sold my car to start my company. Now we operate next door Mall of Africa. So, and this is my third business idea, but it's the one that got successful. So, the thing is, I go around this entrepreneur events and everything, but I hear the same thing. They promise a lot of things, but they provide nothing. And the thing is, it's not about finding sometimes. Sometimes it's about meeting the right people and getting your head right. That's what helped me. And I think it's better for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially the youth, to understand that there's only in a year, I think, I'm sure the National Youth Development, they only offer like 5 people, and then they promise a lot. They advertise on TV, they say, go apply for funding, but we see none. There's no successful story or anything.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, Emily, I've got a lot of empathy. It goes back to the story that I was illustrating, that we're building hospitals, but we're not putting in the doctors and nurses. Because some of these agencies have got people there that have got no clue in terms of how to build a business. And so one of the things that we did at the Innovation Hub is we realized that entrepreneurs were being stifled by exactly these things. We set up a fund, a small fund. It's not even a fund. Our board said we don't call it a fund. We call it a startup support program. Only open to our entrepreneurs in our incubators. And we provide them with small grants that allow them to be able to do the prototype and the minimum viable product for them to then go out to an ITC and TIA and actually get funded. So we established that. The second thing that we did is we put together an investment committee. We went out and said we want somebody from TIA, we want somebody from ITC, we want somebody from DBSA, we want somebody from GEP, we want somebody from ITF managers, and now we just brought in somebody from CEDA into that investment committee. And so they're sitting there, they look at these ideas. When they make the decision to fund, part of it is actually holding them accountable and say, when these guys hit this milestone, are you open and ready to be able to support them? And we've had great success with that particular instrument. I think the amount of leveraging for funds that we've been able to leverage is quite substantial. In the 3 years that we've been running it, I think we've created over 250 jobs just out of the entrepreneurs that have been supported through that particular instrument. And so my advice to entrepreneurs is don't rely on government. Government is not going to build a business for you. So what you've got to do is you've got to actually build your own network. So there's social capital, as well, that comes in with it. So you go to events, talk to people, introduce yourself. So there's what I call significant moments. And so whilst we're sitting here in this room, this evening, there are significant moments that are actually, happening and will happen. Somebody, will, a year, down the line, something is going to happen to them because of what happened, here. And some of us miss those significant moments and opportunities because we don't want to talk to people. We are afraid that people are going to laugh at our ideas. At times, we don't want to talk to people because we think that people are going to steal our ideas. So the advice is don't rely on government. Government, once you're successful, they're going to come after you. And so when you're out there, find the market, solve the problem, borrow from your family, and find a few fools that might believe in you, and keep on moving. But you've got to be the entrepreneur. But at the same time, you must know when to stop. Because at times I've seen entrepreneurs beating the same thing. I'm saying, dude, it's not going to happen. And they can't just understand. The other thing is don't overbuild. So at times you just need to build something and go out to the market, test it, get customer feedback, and then refine it, but be in the market. If you stay outside of the market, chances are somebody's going to eat your lunch.
Just listening to you just makes me realize that you've done a lot of, there's been a lot of support and structures that you've put in place for entrepreneurs and to help a lot of entrepreneurs out there. And just this month, this is your last month at the Incubation, the Innovation Hub. Thank you. So I just want to know, what are some of the highs and lows that you've come across, and also what are you most grateful for? Because one can see that you speak with so much conviction and you really want to help entrepreneurs. You are like so in it. It's not very often you find somebody who is this passionate about helping entrepreneurs, especially coming from the government and all of it. A lot of them are just all talk shop, as Emily has just said. What are you most grateful for?
So, I mean, you don't build what we've built on your own. It's a team. I've had an incredible team of people, you know, that have supported my vision. At times, I've had to drag them, kicking and screaming. But I think if you believe in something and you are really passionate about it, that's what you do. My wife is here, so there's a lady at the back. That's Mrs. Sibanda Dumi. And I'm grateful for her because she's tolerated me.
Yeah.
So weekends, Saturdays, I go and sit down with startups like Lohotla and other startups and have coffee because, you know, people want advice.
Yes.
And so I'm quite grateful, you know, for the family that I have, the team that I had, also the politicians that have supported, you know, the work, you know, that I do, and the many partners that I meet at events, and people say, you know what, that sounds good. Why don't you actually link up this entrepreneur with us? And as a result, I mean, we've had, you know, entrepreneurs. I mean, last week, I sit on another board, and I was chatting to somebody that works at the IDC and spoke about some other entrepreneur, linked them up. The guy went to see him yesterday, and they're interested in funding. So it's really having those connections, and I think the important lesson that I've learned is that when you have been given an opportunity, the big question is, what are you going to do with that opportunity?
Yes.
So it's an issue of access. When you have access, what are you going to do with that access? And I think it's important for us to be able to give that access to other people that actually, you know, need it. Let's not just keep it to ourselves. And so some of the highlights, you know, at the Innovation Hub is, you know, an incubation, you know, program that was incubating 8 startups a year. In 2011 to now, a program that programs that incubate over 450, you know, startups a year. We're only operating in Pretoria then at the Innovation Hub. We're now in 10 townships. We're in Tsimulochong. We have transformed from being a science park that's just operating in that 60-hectare site to being an innovation agency of the province. We have created jobs. We've got more success stories than what we had. We've also seen further development of the park itself. There's quite a nice pipeline, and I'm sure the team that I leave behind will be able to implement that pipeline. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you hear about the innovation corridor of Gauteng, you know, where it, you know, cuts right across the CSR, the Innovation Hub, University of Pretoria. So I think there's a lot of you know, great you know, work. People talk today about you know, the Ekasi Labs. They talk about the gap competitions. We have broadened our relationships. We've got a team from Emory University, Atlanta, Georgia, that lands you know, this week, and they're doing an executive education program for entrepreneurs that have been pre-selected in the next week. So it's really been a blessing. You know, the last 7 years, as a colleague said, it's you know, 7 years signifies completion.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Perfect number. And what's next for you?
So,
It's too early to tell.
yeah. So I've taken up an opportunity in the private sector. So I've been I left the private sector in 2004 when I left Adams & Adams. So I'm joining a company called Bigen Africa, and it's an engineering infrastructure development company. It's growing, it's expanding into the rest of the continent, and is really trying to figure out how we can also utilize the networks that are built within you know, the continent to help expand and you know, like what they do business. They do good whilst doing business, so they do business with the conscious. And so I think the interesting part of it is that they're located at the Innovation Hub.
Oh, so you will still be around the corner.
Yeah, so before I joined the Innovation Hub, as I said, I was in one building and across,
Yeah.
into the other, and so now I'm just moving over to another building.
Wow,
Yeah.
super amazing. And just to wrap up, what is your cry for African entrepreneurs, and is there hope for us? Oh.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I do a lot of work within the continent, and the rest of the continent is actually moving faster than we are moving. So you look at Rwanda. I think a few years ago, people were laughing at Rwanda. What can they do with such a small population? They don't have anything. Rwanda have positioned themselves. So whether it be conferencing, they are the conference center for everything. So once you're able to get people into Rwanda for conferencing in different things, you can be able to do anything. You can be able to attract them to actually invest in the country.
Yes.
You look at Kenya, the youth in Kenya are hungry. Angola, it's got its own problems, but it's coming through. Uganda is one of the fastest growing entrepreneurial markets. And so I think as the continent itself is very ready. And most of the continent does not have the challenges that we face. And so I think, to South Africans, we need to really refocus, recalibrate.
Yes.
We need to just understand that, South Africa is not the beginning and the end.
The world up there.
We have an immense amount of opportunities for us to continue to have an impact on the rest of the continent. But it just depends on how we position ourselves, and at times we have to just humble, ourselves. And so I spoke about, networks, earlier. And so, at a professional level, some of you study or have studied. The big question is, have you kept in touch with some of those foreign nationals that you studied with? And as you build your business, and you want to go into Nigeria, how are you going to enter Nigeria? So it's better to actually, have friends that understand the market, understand the language, understand the culture. And so Africa is open for business, and it's growing faster. The country, South Africa, is growing about 2%, GDP. The fastest growing economies within the continent are like at 6%, 10%.
Yes.
And so the opportunity is there, and also they've got a youthful population. So I think to all the entrepreneurs in the room, make it count. Make it count.
Wow, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. I hope you guys learned as much as I did, and I wish you all the best. And from the Startup Grind team, we wish you all the best for anything that you're going to be doing in the future. And it's really amazing to see somebody who's really passionate about entrepreneurship as much as you are. And all the best with everything.
Thank you very much, guys.